on the air.
Sure. Thank you for letting me know that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to see who accepts the stream. Twitch has accepted the stream.
Great.
YouTube has accepted the stream.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's see if Facebook has accepted the stream. Yep, Facebook has accepted the stream. So, you ready to start your show?
Wait. Almost. I just want to do one.
Oh, we got another thing that we do now.
What?
We create a backup stream for WBFO.
Okay. I'm just trying to. You know, I'm actually trying to get this screen so that I can read it.
Mr. Windsor, can I ask you a question?
Oh, never mind. I found it. So.
Is that recording? Because it doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it's recording.
Yeah, but why no VU? Isn't that odd? Look, testing 1 2 1 2. Did it unplug? No. Did you shut off the feed? Let's turn this way up. Look at that, nothing happens.
And
Huh. We created a backup recording for WBFO in the event of an emergency.
I'm just starting to get concerned about timing and the second show.
All right, well, we'll just start the show then, okay?
If we can, if
All
we
right.
could.
Gotcha.
And if you can send me the link for the Facebook page.
Oh, sure, I'll do that right now.
Yeah, thanks.
And you like it via text.
Yeah, that would be
That's
easier.
easiest
Sure,
for you? Okay.
Sure.
So we go here,
Thanks.
here. Send new message, send it to Vicky.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Say test.
You solved the problem? What was the problem?
Well, I stopped and it said error card.
Oh.
Settings, so I just pulled a different card.
Okay, cool. Okay, check your text, Vicky.
It's still up. Now it has come. Thank you. Okay, so. And
Thank you, Mr. Windsor.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so. Okay. And. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So
We're
shall
ready
I
to
start
go.
the timer?
Yes, please.
And you got the
please.
clapper
Yep,
there?
Yep,
Okay,
we're all
here we
ready to go.
Clap it when you see the words on the air, okay?
Sure.
Here we go.
Thanks. Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at the Think Twice Radio. So we want to start a little differently today. We have Quinna Hamby here. She is Tuscarora. She is Turtle Clan, and going to offer a traditional Haudenosaunee Ganonyo for us. Quinna.
Okay. Trent Askenahe, Giathe, Gijodekwe, Disne, Gisaseta Raquis, Skarudet, Disne, Skarudet, Guy Dakre, Waknene, Notna, Jukunashani, Disne, Uke, Haudenosaunee. Une Wakahef, Gagarihuaye, Egiter, Genike, Rihue, Unehesnenyawe, Twe, Eguawetawe, Det Naine, Agagweni, Thotika, Herguasne, Genike, Digawadakia. Une hesne et nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha ekwage hatne hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne et nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha egwa e ufne hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne et nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha awege hatne afnakia hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne et nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha gache ge hatne u awake hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha un utuhege hatne hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha ukwe utuhege hatne wakai naraku ha gawateti agadachi ha gane ha gerhad ujiher utha hetre disne gachetwath hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha unekwat yuhure hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha ure ege hatne wakai naraku ha uchiketa agadachi hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha gari uge hatne wakai naraku ha akwe agadachi hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha jitne ge hatne wakai naraku ha staguia agadachi hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha hitak diga urakia hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha ekwari asud ge hatne hitne ge haka hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha yaguarachi hite hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha yaguasu rathenyaha hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha yuni sararawe urehiake hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha gaeri hetiati unet nyaretre hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une hesne nwati gerharu tretne kina harates ha rawet diatne tare yawakia hane ekwari huatathe une jahwati gerhad. Une yagwatihu hewe yagwawitat nesu une hatwet dawete yagwat nihak gwis ari gwedi heg ari yagwati gerha niheg de awite har hanet twagayas dwedu ithwere disnet ethwin herated hanet neuneg disne yagwati gerha ked une jahwati gerhad. Thank you. That I guess translates to just I said let's gather our minds together and give thanks and acknowledgement to all things from the earth to the sky. And just at the end there said some final words. You know, I'm still in the process of learning this. And if there's anything that I may have left out or forgotten, it wasn't my intention to do so. And so come here in like a humble way and just remember that, you know, to give thanks and say those words before all else. So thank you.
Nyawe. No. So we are so grateful for your offering that, Quinna, and you've learned so much. It's so beautiful to hear, and I know that all the different elements in the world, you know, all the Mother Earth and all the creatures and all the plants and the different the sky, the Creator, that you're thanking that is so important. And so when we start this show off, we usually start off thanking Richard Wicca, our producer, for the studio, for using, you know, for helping us to produce this show, and for WBNY for broadcasting this show, rebroadcasting this show. And then we also then remember, you know, to acknowledge that this land that we are all sitting on, I think for us here in the studio, certainly all of us are on stolen Haudenosaunee land that was taken through trickery and violence and everything else. And also Yanenowi, I think you are. And then Quinna, where are you? Which land are you on?
This would be Duwamish territory.
Yeah, in Washington.
In the Northwest in Seattle, yeah.
Yeah. So
just unceded as well.
And unseated, yes. So that's another thing. So thank you so much for that. It's a wonderful way to start off the show by remembering all of that. And especially on this show, which we are talking about, we're recording this actually on UN declared World Indigenous Peoples Day. And so we have two very special guests and a wonderful co-host. So I'll just go in the Haudenosaunee area tradition of going counterclockwise. So Quinna Hamby, that I've already introduced a little bit, to just say that you also are a graduate from University of Washington. You have a bachelor's in gender studies and women's studies, and you have very strong, we were talking about our strong women mothers, speaking of which now I go on to our next guest. So welcome and thank you, or thank you for welcoming us to With the Ganonyo, Quinna.
Thank you.
And then of course I am very excited always whenever I get to see Yanenowi Logan, who got our Western New York Peace Center Emerging Leaders Award last year, and she is very clearly and very definitely an emerging leader in so many ways, locally and in her school, and also nationally, where she is the for the National Congress of American Indians. She is the Youth Commission co-president, which happened right after we had said that you were an emerging leader. It hadn't happened yet, but we already knew. So welcome, Yanenowi, or thank you for coming on.
Hi, Nyawa, for having me. I'm super excited to talk with you guys today.
Well, and of course, you're a friend of the show. You've been on the show before.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love it. It's always
Yes.
a great time.
Oh, we love to have you on the show. And last but not least, Sameria Mbili, who has been co-hosted and even hosted the show, a time or two. So Sameria just graduated from Canisius College, was the president of the Peace Action Canisius College group, and still connected with them and doing all kinds of work and volunteering too for the Western New York Peace Center, which I always want to encourage people to do, because it's all going to be, yes, we can, but only Harambe together, or so many different, in all our different cultures, we still know that same thing. It has to be together. So, and I didn't introduce myself I'm reclaimed my teenage nickname of Victory. So, but people can call me Vicky, Victoria, or Victory, or anything else remotely like in that neighborhood. And Ross, and I am the board chair at the Western New York Peace Center, and very, very glad and grateful to be on this show. So we like to start out with the values that drive us, really, that why we're even here. So if we could just do a go round on the values that you think of, especially when you think of World Indigenous Peoples Day. So Quinna, if you want to go first, then we'll just go round.
Yeah. So I guess, like I said, with acknowledging, just like having gratitude is like a really core principle in all of these things. And I guess answering this first question, I'm just getting off back from like this canoe journey here in the Northwest. And there's so many like teachings and values, I think, that come from like being involved in community, or like learning from each other, I guess. And just being on the water, for one, teaches you humility because of like the natural elements, and like the way that, you have to work together and respect one another, and love each other, despite differences. I guess there's just so many things, and to see like a large community out here come together, it feels really profound. And there's a lot of wisdom, I think, like if you're looking like at our life experiences, because it doesn't just happen, I guess, while you're on those journeys or like in ceremony, but like how I guess you can carry yourself with those teachings outside of those spaces. And so, yeah, I'm just grateful to be here, to speak with, you all, and get to meet some like-minded, I guess, individuals. And so that's that's my truth. It's my first time here, and so it's exciting. I've known Vicky for a really long like a really long time, just from our
Yes.
mothers, and so yeah, acknowledging, I guess, too, like where we're coming from and like who we are, um and like grounding yourself in those teachings, so like we know like that there's a place for us here and that we belong, and these teachings remind us that, whether it just be, a dance or a song that we can share together, like it reminds us that Indigenous peoples, have a purpose and a place and a responsibilities, like all things I think we'll be discussing a little bit today. So again,
Yes.
just gratitude, and I'm like
Thank-
honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Yanenowi.
Yeah, I really love what you said about community. I would say same goes. I think very traditionally, but it's also rising popularity, is the phrase "all my relations," and I do really love that, because it's not just talking about your mom and your cousins and your friends. It's talking about the land and the waters, and what you said very eloquently put that. It is about this community. And I think when we're talking about World Indigenous Peoples Day, it's not just about Native Americans or the people in North America. It's all over the world, and that effort that we're all pursuing to protect one another and the land. And I think that that's a really good and strong driving force for me and the work I do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that. And then, Sameria, what would you think of in this connection?
I would also say community, like you guys have mentioned, but I would add on to it human dignity and self-determination, just human dignity to respect other people's traditions and their culture. And self-determination goes into allowing the people to govern themselves and allowing them to have allowing their culture to be a representative of who they are.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, that is very big. And that's very big. And, I love to hear you being the one to say it, too, because it is what I feel sometimes, as allies, that it's very important, especially for us to stand up for each other. So sometimes people are talking about, we need to stand up for our self-interest and all that. And I'm not saying we don't. We each do. But we also need to stand up for each other, and see and honor and work for each other's rights, and certainly for Indigenous people who have been, and people of color, so BIPOC, that whole BIPOC community, and women also, so any, marginalized peoples, and certainly Indigenous people have been so marginalized all over the world, and especially by, the Western powers or the European colonizers all over the world. So it behooves us to, to stand up for each other. So I think when I often use it, and I think I'll use it again today, that the values I think of, because I do think of this so often, of what Reverend Dr. King said, truth and love, truth and love. So the truth is, because what we were talking about, how people have been marginalized and oppressed, colonized and violated and, treated wrongly and so very wrongly for so many years. And that time, there's so much changing right now. So crisis equal to opportunity. And we have that opportunity and that responsibility. So that's the part about truth. Of course, Gandhi, too, Satyagraha, truth seeking. So that seeking that truth, not like it's a simple thing. Sometimes that's, that can be, that spirit. It's that energy and spirit, not just whether something is true or false. It's that. And then that's really love. That's the motivator, the spirit that's in us. Not that we don't have other things in us too, but that love is the driving force, and it's the driving force for creation, but also for activism, for caring for each other, and for trying to make things better for the whole creation. So So anyway, that on values, it very much lends itself to, and when we're honoring and thinking of World Indigenous Peoples Day, that Indigenous people, there's a reason why we have World Indigenous Peoples Day, and that reminding us of the indigenous wisdom of people, of Indigenous people, the wisdom that is brought to the table. And so I want to just go around on, that, if you want to just say a little bit what you think. And as you've already been touching on it, even as you put it so beautifully, Quinna, when you were talking about this trip that you were just on. So let us talk a little bit, just, what do you think about World Indigenous Peoples Day and that issue of the wisdom that is offered to the world? So.
Yeah, well, I think combination of these principles, and like I had said, trying to carry that out in my daily life. A lot of times I feel like it can be really scary to exist with these teachings, and so or to even speak up and talk about these issues can be really rehashing wounds when you look at the history of the US and colonization, right. And the truth of what happened to Indigenous peoples in this country. At least I think trying to have courage as well in talking about this, but using these principles and acknowledging, I guess, how far we've come and how we're still here and we're strong, and just trying to encourage others to speak up. And if that means I'll try my best today and speak my truth and to share with you all, I hope that may, inspire someone else to keep going, or if it's just one person that will hear this and feel an impact. I think that's really important, because Indigenous peoples across the whole world need to know there's a place for them, and so oftentimes we don't see ourselves reflected throughout history, I guess, and so we need to be okay with existing as our authentic selves, and whatever that may be, honor your gifts and follow that that path that Creator laid out for you, and that work that you're intended to do.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Yanenowi?
Yeah, that was really nicely put. Thank you for that. I on a day like today, I feel like a lot of the Indigenous people's days kind of get mixed together, and there's a lot, and sometimes you can't keep track of them. And you're like, oh, today's Indigenous people's day. I thought that was another day. And,
right.
But it's kind of funny that we do have acknowledgements, and they do exist. And sometimes they exist, in Canada, and sometimes they exist here, sometimes they exist in the UN. And so kind of figuring out when or how do we utilize these days that don't really entitle much to actual Indigenous people. They don't give much besides this acknowledgement of this day. And we see that problem a lot in land acknowledgements too. You can only go so far with an acknowledgement.
Right.
But I think it's really empowering to see the conversations like this happen, to kind of not just acknowledge, but move forward these platforms and move forward these ideas and these concepts that we're always talking about, and to kind of, put words into action. I know for us at the Youth Commission, we see issues with Indian youth in our communities, and then, we rehash it with one another. And then we decide, all right, what's the initiative that we're going to take on this? Because it's only doing so much to just acknowledge it and write a statement. Mm-hmm. We need to start and implement some sort of programming to kind of aid the issues that are happening in our communities. And so on this day, I hope that is happening in more places than one. But yeah.
Well, it's certainly happening when both of you speak. I want to say, absolutely. I so appreciate that the wisdom that you're bringing to the table. So, Sameria.
Yeah. So like just with both of you guys speaking and like telling your stories, like your stories are so powerful, and how your ancestors have showed you like have given you the courage to speak out and to speak out about these injustices that has happened in the past, and how they continue to affect you today. And you spoke about how, you know, your creator has set the path out before you, but to actually follow it. And it's really beautiful. So I think just like your storytelling and making sure that your voices are heard, like that's the most impactful thing that can happen. And just getting the word out there, and through community, that's a pathway that change can happen, is like coming together and talking about environmental justice, talking about injustices to the community is how we can make change happen. So it's really beautiful to see that, you know, even though this is just another day, we call out of the many Indigenous Peoples Day that we have, it's still another chance to fight forward for what's right.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you so much, Sameria. So I think that's all very well put. Of, you know, courage is needed, you know, action is needed, you know, and appreciating and getting behind those actions, and especially behind the people who are most affected by the particular thing. So right now, as we're talking about issues for Indigenous people are the ones who have the knowledge for the solutions to the issues that are most affecting, right? And need the support to help to improve those things. So courage is huge, and I think of the courage that has been shown by Indigenous people right along, and by other oppressed peoples right along, because it takes a lot of courage to buck that system, you know, to bring up the things that are wrong, and to take action about those things that are wrong, and try to change them. So that's where, you know, again, we can, you know, take the lead as allies, when we try to be allies, take the lead from the people most affected, hearing people with their own voice and with their own solutions, their own needs and actions needed. Then we can help move us forward, because the moving forward is so important. And I think especially with Indigenous people, because of the closeness to the land, because of the ways that your ways that have been more about sustainability and reciprocity and responsibility, and all the things that the Western ways have not been, and those ways that have been now spread all over the world have not been, then it becomes more important for all of us to support those ways, to see the wisdom in those ways, and to try and help with them. So I think of the so many ways that's been done throughout the coming of the settlers to this country. It has still been done and done again and again, and it has been a heavy cost, but it's still being done, and it's still being done. So maybe if we talk a little bit about some of the special, if you want to talk about some of that, you know, the fight for environmental justice, we could go round on that as well. So, Quinna?
Yeah, so I feel as though, in my experience of traveling around to different Indigenous communities across, like, the U.S., the United States at least, our present-day United States, I think that a lot of the teachings from Indian country center like land-based identities, like you said, and like staying close to like the earth. And so I was kind of looking at like what you're talking about, like with roles and responsibilities too, like how through like a lot of, I guess, devastating times during my life, like I've gravitated towards like culture and community, and that's oftentimes reconnecting to the land. And like I had just said again, like grounding yourself and like knowing that there are spaces within our communities that still, you know, exist to like uplift people, so that again we can like just yeah, protect the earth, protect one another. And yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
still in the process of learning that too, you know. It feels like an everyday thing. Yeah.
Well, I think I hear you. I hear you very much on that, and being part of that, and Yanenowi as well. So please.
Yeah. This past, I think, a week or two ago, I attended the Haudenosaunee Youth and Elders gathering that happened in Onondaga. And there was a lot of youth came together. All of the elders in the community spoke and shared stories. And we talked about the climate issues that are affecting our community directly, you know, in Haudenosaunee country.
Right.
And it was really important. I learned a lot, honestly. Like at school, sometimes you think like, oh, I got a good handle on this climate stuff. But in reality, there's stories and there's practices that you don't know are in jeopardy until you're working with the communities and until you're going home and you're figuring that out. And so it was really refreshing to hear the work that's being done to preserve some of our trees and our waterways, keep our waterways clean, and to just gather and make sure that these stories are being shared and these issues are being met in some capacity. And if not, they're being called to and we're bringing attention to them. And so that was really refreshing and really great to see, because the local issues are often like what's most important, because we have to hit all of the small things to get to the greater issues.
Right.
And to kind of I guess wrap that up, I encourage you guys to read Fresh Banana Leaves by Jessica Hernandez. It's a really great book on Indigenous traditional ecological knowledge, and it talks about, you know, familial stories and matriarchal stories, and a lot of research and science is involved, and a lot of times that work is undermined, and so reading that kind of legitimizes Indigenous practices as a legitimate science, and as, you know, something that really does move forward climate solutions.
So what is that book again, and the author?
Fresh Banana Leaves, Jessica Hernandez.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's really great. And a lot of the work I do at school in environmental
Right.
sustainability is based in how Indigenous storytelling is a climate solution, and how, you know, it's not just words, it's not just folk tales and myths, it's real and ancestral knowledge that we can move forward even today. So it's really great read, and yeah, I encourage you guys to kind of keep working to legitimize those sciences and those stories.
Absolutely wonderful. Thanks. And Sameria.
When I think about environmental injustice, like my heart goes out for the people in Brazil who suffered from the Amazon fires, and how I'm wondering how they're coping with that in their ecosystems and the land that provides for all their daily needs. That right there, and because of all this, is because of global warming is the reason for all of this. And then also in Canada, there's wildfires that I'm not sure if been tamed yet, but there's wildfires going out everywhere, and we're just living in this world, and it's just continuing to get hotter. And people who inhabit the land aren't being thought of, like nuclear waste is being poured out. Even in Buffalo, in Niagara County, the Love Canal and how all that radioactivity affects the people living in the land. So environmental justice is just, I feel like it's hard to have hope, but we have to have hope and provide justice for the people living on the land. So, and our water supply is also running out. So, and I don't know, the people who are the richest obviously will get to the water first. So,
Well, we will all suffer, and
Yeah.
there's no question people are suffering already. I mean, the blizzard that just happened in Buffalo, and as you brought up, and we will be talking actually in the following show about nuclear issues, and of course, nuclear issues are very close as with a nod to Dr. Agnes Williams, who is always singing that song of, that Indigenous people are all the way along the nuclear chain, that everywhere from the mining to the delivery to the processing to the waste, and especially the waste, and just in and also look at who was bombed. Well, anyway, we'll get into that in the next show. But I know it was just in Buffalo today about the nuclear waste in Niagara County from the Manhattan Project, and of course then there's West Valley. So there's those nuclear issues and those environmental issues. Those are environmental issues, but of course climate catastrophe is already happening, and so I loved what you said, Yanenowi, about. That some people put it this way of think locally, think globally, act locally, because locally is where we can make those changes, and also the solutions to a lot of issues have been found to be in the traditional ways. So I don't know how many of you know Vandana Shiva. And if you don't, you would really love. First of all, I did write down. That's my homework, to read Jessica Hernandez, Vandana Shiva, Dr. Vandana Shiva. She actually was she's a nuclear physicist, but she's a climate activist from India, and she is especially worried about biodiversity and all of that. But anyway, she's written all kinds of books, and one of them was Water Wars, about the water issues are immediate, and the water issues will hit the fan before anything else. That's going to be the big thing. So anyway, there's we just have to get very, really drastic action going to go back to ways, and find new ways, but respecting the old ways that give us the clues of what we need to at least not do, and then finding other ways of going back to some of the traditional ways so that we're not doing the damage that we've been doing. So I feel, and when we talk about climate catastrophe, that it has most often been the Indigenous people who are the most forceful and the most clear-headed and clear-minded and courageous about pushing that issue. So, and other people too, I'm not to exclude. I mean, thank you, Jane Fonda. Thank you, Bill McKibben. Thank you. What is her name? From, the young Nobel Prize winner. So somebody will know. Greta Thunberg.
Yeah.
Right. So also Greta Thunberg, you say, act like the world is on fire, because it is. And that was before all these forest fires were quite as bad as they've been. So we have a lot of work to do. And back to taking the leadership from the Indigenous people and the traditional ways, or also just the finding of new ways. I'd like to, go to some of the traditions and sort of some of the place you find yourself in as Indigenous youth. So you mentioned that yourself, Yanenowi, when you're talking about some of in the youth council, some of the issues that you all have found and that you've, you know, and I think it's true for all of our young people that they're dealing with all kinds of problems that are really the result of everything that came before. So that we older generations are responsible, and yet it's the young generations who are left holding the bag. So anyway, so if we can go around a little bit on that about the special, how is it for Indigenous youth right now? Quinna?
Yeah, well, I want to say that it's so inspiring to see Indigenous youth who, like you, Yanenowi, I hope I said that right. And just others that I can think of, stand up, and Sameria, just being able to sit like this and talk. And I don't feel as if, I know all of the answers or like solutions, but I see also so many of like people close to me struggling and like with their mental health. And so oftentimes, like at least this week, I've been drawn to like thinking about, the great law of peace that was brought to our people, and how we can kind of like, we need to be able to work together and live peacefully in order to, like tackle these things. And so I think that's a really important role, I think, that has come up, and like honoring like where we fall admits that. Like I think that in a lot of spaces we're taught to like let elders speak before you, and so like as like a youth, I feel like it's important to say like, or like to acknowledge like, I'm sorry if I'm like saying anything like wrong or like speaking before my elders, but a lot of times like there are times we've had to like stand up and represent ourselves because of like what was lost during like boarding and residential schools and all of that, like unpacking, years of that trauma. Right. But taking time to remember like how loved you are, and like honoring like that self-care and the process of like how you can cope through like a lot of loss or like a lot of grief or a lot of like mental health, things that come up, and just wanting to like, I guess sometimes that can just be like living, like trying to follow like that path and like living your best self as like an example for others. And so I guess whatever that may be, but like being peaceful and like trying, to use that good mind in like every aspect, or like again, like I'm open, and inspired by others. And so just, yeah, it's good medicine to talk like this about these things and to get to know one another. Other people that are doing this work will come together, and I'm ready, to like put myself on the line and like stand up for these issues too, because once like, climate catastrophes or like crises start to hit close to home, it feels like, it can be really violent, and right. And we have to, be willing to stand up to those like to issues. And so like activism and like speaking up about what's on your heart and about what's, coming through to you, I guess, trying to honor those things and your truth. So
beautiful.
It's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, very much so. Very beautifully put. Thank you, Quinna. And yay, Yanenowi.
Yeah, from what I've seen, every community and all the youth groups in all of these communities have different priorities. But the issues that they stem from are more or less the same in a lot of the communities. And it all stems from, colonial trauma and violence and grief. Right. And just like people, we all heal differently. These communities are all healing differently. But it's really beautiful, and it's really inspiring to see. A lot of my cousins are in language revitalization, and it's so rewarding just as like a bystander to see like my cousins graduating from language programs and working with youth in language. And like, I'm not necessarily a part of that, but I see it, and I I know that it's happening, and I want that for our children and the next generation. And that's something, we always talk about. But a lot of other communities have addiction problems, or they don't have access to their water, or Nestle's taking their water, like in Six Nations. And the youth are the ones who are kind of demanding that this isn't okay. The youth and the elders, and they're demanding that this isn't okay, and we need to do something about this. And I've just encountered so many people who are in different sections of policy and the law, or of the science and research, or in creative writing even, and they're doing the work that targets those issues, like MMIW or ICWA, like, which was just handed down in the Supreme Court, finally was affirmed.
Right,
and
right.
All of these issues, though, it's not just climate, but it's intersectional, and that's the conversations that we're having, is that it doesn't matter what your trade is, what your interests are, you have a place in these movements. And so working with youth and hearing stories from youth about what they need in their communities, it's all different, but it's also all the same. And that support and those stories, they need to be continued to be shared, so that we can figure something out. Coming from like a Native organization, a Native nonprofit, NCAI, we have a lot of power, but we don't have as much as the federal government that can hand all these funds and all of the support that they're just not going to do. And so it's important that we have Native lawyers and Native researchers and Native writers, and so it's inspiring to see, but the priorities are all different, and we have to figure out how to hit them all. And it's a big task, but nothing generations haven't done before. So
in different ways and with varying amounts of, I always say the wonderful and the terrible are side by side every day and intimately connected. But so Sameria, what would you say for that?
I mean, so I'm not native to this land. My mom came
Right.
as a refugee to America, but I can relate to the indigenous people in the sub-Saharan Africa, where my ancestors come from, and just being a youth and being able to, my ancestors also had oppression and colonization, so I can resonate with that pain. But being able to reclaim that power is by celebrating your culture, celebrating who you are, and being yourself, not allowing what society tells you to be, allowing that to influence your decision-making process, but finding out who you are through what your past, who your parents say you are, or who you discover yourself to be. I think that's one of the ways that youth can understand themselves better. But what was said earlier about having all these different priorities and trying to figure out what we value most is kind of like what's keeping us from moving forward, because our mind is not set on one particular goal. It's kind of just like scattered in a spectrum. So I think that coming together and talking about what do we value the most and what should we take up first, like what is most urgent, is how we can figure out an activist plan. So
one thing I think when I'm hearing you say that is I think that different groups are doing that in different ways, so that for different people or different peoples, it would be a different answer, and especially in the time and place that we're talking about. So that, as you were saying, some of the youth groups are focused on one thing, and in another nation or another place, the youth are so focused on another thing that's the more immediate thing. And the other thing I wanted to say about trauma, as a social worker, as a qualified clinical social worker, You know, and as somebody who has my own trauma and my own, you know, there's so much. My dad was a German Jew, or my mom, you know, had her own trauma, had nothing to do with that. It was more survivor guilt for family illness and death. And then my sister couldn't walk, you know, from a birth injury. So there's so many ways that trauma comes, and certainly for oppressed people who have been violated, who've been just treated in all kinds of ways, just terrorized, victimized, you know, and oppressed. Of course, and we know that trauma is intergenerational. We know that. That's been shown time and time again. So that those things that you talked about, that are the things that help us through, you know, of, you know, valuing our identity and learning our history and being in community, and actually I can't help mentioning that there's the Deidre E. Mell, who is the executive director at the Western New York Peace Center, is doing mind-body skills groups for people. So there are things that we can do in terms of breathing, in terms of even, you know, expressive meditations or actual meditation, or, you know, at ceremonies. So many of the ceremonies are a lot like some of these things. You know, or these things are a lot like some of the ceremonies, put it that way, you know, so that there are these things that we can do that help us feel, you know, one with with nature, you know, that help us to deal with our what I call broken alert systems, you know, because our alert systems are broken because they're on all the time, and they're not meant to be on all the time. So that, you know, people are anxious, anxious or angry, or there's that agitation, you know, that people feel for reason. It's not for no reason, right? Sometimes there are things that were unavoidable, you know, or even those, I was just thinking of different climate incidents that still are they should have been avoidable, but at a certain point they're not avoidable. Anyway, I don't want to talk too long, but just to say those groups are happening, and those different medicines, you know, and it's called mind-body medicine, right? So I think of, you know, or food as medicine, you know, so many, and that's back to the indigenous wisdom, because that is what I've also heard from our Haudenosaunee friends, you know, that these things are the medicines, right, for us. So anyway, so how about if we go around with how people can help? Because we're getting down to the last, you know, the time is running along. So how you see, what you see that people could do to help. So, Quinna?
I think, okay, the first thing that comes to mind, I guess, would be as simple as just showing up. And that doesn't matter if, you know, you feel like maybe it's not the right place, or like you don't have the, I don't know, like just show up. It doesn't matter like how you look or like how you're dressed. Like having you there, like, is so important. Having, you know, people and like again, community and like that, like to just dance and sing and to celebrate like life. This life is a gift. Like I'm grateful to be alive, and like encourage anyone to like remember, you know, how, you know, like they belong and that they're loved. And so that's kind of like, for me, what I think is really important, just, you know.
Absolutely. And love is the ultimate. Love is what we need. Well, we need, yeah. Anyway, and Yanenowi, what do you think?
Yeah. When I was at the Haudenosaunee Youth and Elders retreat or gathering, Makasha Looking Horse, she's from Oswego, Six Nations, Ontario, and she asked the youth panel about how we're dealing with climate grief. And we all of us shared the same sentiment that like you need to be connected with the land, and you need to be connected with your community wherever that is. That doesn't mean If you don't come from a reservation, it doesn't mean that it has to be there.
Right.
It doesn't have to be in the longhouse, but that's a great place for a lot of people that have, shown that can be healed there. It can be in your school, it can be in your neighborhood, it can be with your job, wherever it is, you have to find that community, and then you have to connect with the land. You have to spend some time outdoors. And later wisdom from Robin Wall Kimmerer, that she wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. She was telling us that the average American doesn't know to name more than 5 plants. And she was like, that's outrageous. Or more than 10 plants, 10 plants or species. And so she took us on a medicine walk, and we learned a lot of different plants, their uses. And that's like one of those things that you can do as an individual on a daily basis that will heal that climate grief, because it'll give you that connection to the land, and it'll show you the medicinal properties, the healing properties, the way that the land is trying to heal itself. And that we can assist in that. And so I thought those two things were really connected and really moving. And I think that the average person can do, and definitely show up and listen and uplift your Native and Indigenous and Black and Indigenous people of color, uplift them all in all of their voices and all of their stories, because they're all connected, and we got to hear them all through.
Wonderful. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Yes. And Sameria?
I think maybe the first thing is I'll probably have to go find out more plants, because I don't think I can name 10 plants.
Oh, sure you can.
You think so?
Well,
I
then
don't
if
know.
you can't, I'm going out with you. No, I know a lot of plants, and not to say that I don't have a ton more to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
So
definitely,
we have a date for that.
I'll have to go to a garden.
Yes.
Yeah, but definitely education, like just like what you were saying about learning different plants, but also connecting with people that are outside of your community. Like I would love to get to know both of you further. I hope this is not the end of the conversation here, but just being uncomfortable and meeting people and talking to people from different all walks of life. I think that's another way that you can grow the community and also just be by a bystander, just be able to stand with you guys and uplift your voices as well, and also educate other people, because I'm sure a lot of people don't even know that we're sitting on stolen Haudenosaunee land, and that itself speaks volumes of how uneducated the population we live in is about the reality of the situation. So just education, of course, that's like the main pillar for me.
Yes. So that is wonderful. In different ways, as all of the things that you've said are things that we can each do just in our daily life to help each other and to get ourselves onto the next level. Also, one of the things I always feel that our issues are connected, all of our issues are connected, and our solutions are connected too. So that's where we're stronger when we bring those issues together. And it doesn't mean that we don't need to parse out specifics at times or focus in on what's local or what's for this group right now, but that in a general way there's a way of doing things differently, that with reciprocity, with that gratitude, with that and with the courage, and with the truth and love, right, and community, and oneness in the creation. So I think we're about at the end of the time. Is there anything special that each of you want to share on the way out? I love that you want to get together again. I say, well, we can do that. We can definitely do that. Anything each, if you want to, just a last final word, Quinna?
Yeah, I'm just thankful and grateful again to be here, and to be able to share a little bit of my perspective is really awesome. And thank you, Vicky, for asking me to come here and for introducing us. I look forward to seeing all of the work you are all sure to continue to do, and encourage you on that as well.
Thanks. Thank you so much. Yanenowi?
Yeah, I was just gonna quickly plug that. There's no, or I think September, October. This October, I'll be heading to Rome, Italy, for the UN Indigenous Youth Forum or Indigenous
Wow.
something like that.
Mhm.
And I'll be fundraising for that. So be sure to keep in touch, and hopefully we'll get there. But I'm planning on traveling there with my Haudenosaunee passport and exercising travel sovereignty, and so that'll be a huge thing I'll be working on, and hopefully we'll push an article out for that. So definitely stay in touch.
Yes.
You guys all inspire me, and thank you, West Onyawa, for having me on and sharing your stories with me. It's been a great honor and great time.
Oh, thank you so much. And Sameria?
No, I also want to express my gratitude for you guys allowing me to be here and learning from all of you. So thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everyone else, for allowing me this opportunity to learn from you guys.
Well, I can't thank each of you enough. It is so wonderful to be here with three such wonderful people who give me such real hope and joy for the future, for what we need to do and we will do together. So I can't thank you enough. I would just say Nyawe.
No, and people say no.
Yeah.
And then this is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love. Thank you so much. That was
Thank
great.
you.
Oh, what a wonderful job you each did. Absolutely. So we'll let Richard know, and he'll turn it off, and I have to do the next show, which one of the
Okay.
things when I was looking at, it's because the next show, Jim just found out he has to get ready to leave Japan more quickly than he thought. But anyway, let us keep in touch. You all have each other's phone numbers and emails because of the,
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, find you guys on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah, and
we can
on
stay
social
connected.
media, find each
Right.
other on social media, and also find the Western New York Peace Center, because we need you all, and we're all in this together. So, share things to us or let us know, and we'll be working together, because we've got to, and it's fun to work together.
Yeah.
That's what we said. It's part of the antidote community. So thanks so much. You take care.
Okay, talk
see you.
soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Big hugs.
That was good.
Yes, that was very good. Okay, so I'm going to tell the other people that they can come in. So here, let me find the wonderful. Yep.
Like you're off the air.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, we are. We've been off the air.
Okay.
I did use the clapper.
Okay.
Yeah. And Jim Anderson just told me he has to